Hi everyone, thanks for being with me today. It's a sad day because I need to talk about what's happening at the Hawthorn Football Club here in Australia. Now, I'm aware that racism happens everywhere, that what happens within football clubs is a microcosm of what's happening in our wider community. But it does demonstrate to us that racism is alive and unwell in Australia, and that what's happening with the Hawthorn Football Club at the moment in terms of the allegations made about the past coach and assistant coach within the football club is terrible. The reason why it's so is that firstly, racism of any description is simply wrong. Secondly, it's young people who play football. For many of them, it's their career. It's the chance they have to make a name for themselves and a future. And for First Nations people, that is particularly important. They need to be recognised for the skill that they have, and they can role model those skills and talents and the way they develop in the future to other Indigenous people. It's a critical role to have. Yet to have these issues happen, which I'm about to discuss with you, within a football club, any football club, is horrific. The title of the article that I'm going to read from is called Hawthorn Racism Allegations, Alastair Clarkson and Chris Fagan named in shocking allegations of baby loss, self-harm and trauma. And the reason why this is particularly important, I guess, is that Alastair Clarkson has been one of the best coaches in Australia for many, many years, and Chris Fagan has taken the Brisbane Lions from towards the bottom of the ladder towards the top. And both these men are respected in their fields, but respected no longer. Whatever respect one might have had for them is now gone because of their behaviour and the way they've treated young Indigenous people within their team. So I'm going to read a couple of articles some segments from this particular article. And I just want to note that some of this stuff is very disturbing. And if you do find these issues disturbing, I'd suggest you would like to call Lifeline or some other service that can help you. Young Indigenous Hawthorn players were separated from their partners and were pressured to terminate a pregnancy by key Hawks officials, including then senior coach Alastair Clarkson, according to allegations reports by the ABC on Wednesday morning. The ABC report claims that an external review that was commissioned by the Hawks into its recent history involved First Nations players had revealed shocking allegations involving multiple players, one of whom it is claimed had made several attempts on their own life in the aftermath. That's how dramatic this is, that young people have been so distressed by this that they've considered suicide. Hawthorn released a statement early on Wednesday morning to say it was investigating the disturbing historical allegations. The ABC alleges that the document, which included interviews with current and former players and staff members, was handed to Hawthorn's senior management a fortnight ago, and that the AFL Integrity Unit is investigating. And I hope that when they investigate, they choose to dismiss, to no longer have anything to do with either Fagan or Clarkson. They need to go, and they need to send a message that this sort of behaviour has to cease. It also claims that the document reportedly includes allegations against former club figures, including then Hawthorn senior coach Alastair Clarkson, who was recently appointed to the top job at North Melbourne. And North Melbourne now need to consider, I guess, what they're going to do with him, and they certainly need to sack him. And then now Brisbane senior coach Chris Fagan and Hawthorn player development manager Jason Bird. All these football managers and coaches need to go. In this report, The ABC said the incidents took place during Hawthorn's reigning era, which included 3 premierships between 2013 and 2015, and that in some cases coaches allegedly coerced on at least 2 players to remove SIM cards from their phones and insert new ones in attempts to cut them off from their partners and focused entirely on the club's pursuit of football success. So it was more important for the clubs to be focusing on winning their premierships than it was the mental and physical well-being of these players, not just the players, but also their partners and their families. The club did not care about the families or anybody else associated with these players, and least of all these players. They were only focused on their one goal. They didn't care about the well-being of their players. It also claims that one player who had been delighted with the news that his partner was pregnant with their first child in his early days at Hawthorn had delivered the news to his teammates and staff members, but was urged to get rid of his partner by a group of coaches it alleges including Clarkson and Fagan. Clarkson just leaned over me, this is a quote, Clarkson just leaned over me and demanded that I needed to get rid of my unborn child and my partner. The ABC report quotes the unnamed player as saying, I was then manipulated, another quote, I was then manipulated and convinced to remove my SIM card from my phone so there was no further contact between my family and me. They told me I'd been living with one of the other coaches from that night onwards. He told me to kill my unborn kid. Who would ever make a statement like that? What person in their right mind? What's the mental condition of someone who would make that statement towards another person? Particularly when this young person was excited about becoming a father. What has any of that got to do with football? Absolutely nothing. Because I can assure you they wouldn't say that to a white person. It's terrible. It's racism at its worst. It was later claimed that the player's mental health had noticeably frayed in the months that followed as his partner continued with the pregnancy, and that he was eventually allowed to return on the condition that they moved from a suburb the club didn't approve of to one more in keeping with Hawthorn's image. It's pathetic, absolutely pathetic. It is alleged that the same couple terminated a subsequent pregnancy after what is described as fear and trauma, given their previous encounters with the club, while another was informed of his partner's miscarriage in passing after the pair had been urged to separate by club figures. Hawthorn said the club immediately engaged AFL Integrity as is appropriate in the wake of its finding. The clubs will continue to provide support to those who have participated in this process, and their well-being remains our priority. Well, why in the fuck wasn't their well-being a priority when this was happening? Where were you? And the interesting thing is that when listening to these people talk, that is the managers of the club at the moment, we don't hear them saying, in fact they do say that they knew nothing about this. Why didn't they know anything about it? Why weren't people talking? Simply because they were afraid. So the fear that exists within that club of disclosing issues that's happening to you as a result of those people that are above you, the managers, coaches and so forth, is so intense that people cannot step forward and make claims such as they've made now. None of these players, I think, none of these people play for the club anymore. But who would have been there to have helped them when they were? Can we feel confident that if players are harassed in similar ways today, that they will step forward and make a claim? We know that Surioli, some months back, made similar claims against Hawthorn Football Club. And we don't know whether he was a person that they're talking about here, but certainly he attempted to make this known to all those concerned. To what extent was he listened to? Probably not very much. How will this damage the Hawthorn Football Club? I hope it damages them a lot. I hope that their supporters say enough is enough. I'm going to stand back. I'm not going to pay my membership dues. I'm not going to do what I need to do to support you because I'm repulsed by what you've done. I'd like to know what you think, and I'd like to think that perhaps you could subscribe to my channel if you wish to find out more information. And also, this particular article is placed on my webpage, which is at tonytonkin.com.au. So, what do you think? What do you think should happen to the Hawthorn Football Club? What do you think we should do in order to meet this scourge of racism here in Australia? Thanks everybody for being with me. Take care, look after yourselves, and be safe.